You're watching The Agent's Eye on the VCN. My name is Hugh Leon. I am a partner and head of the adult commercial and celebrity departments here at Coast to Coast Talent Group in Los Angeles.
How did you get your start in entertainment?
I was actually a child actor. I started when I was 6.5. Had no idea what I was doing. Met with a manager who said, get used to rejection, and you have to understand that there's a lot of rejection in this business. At that age, I had no idea what that meant. And I was fortunate because the first several years that I actually did this as an actor, I wasn't rejected. I was booking things. And so I thought, well, this is easy. And it wasn't until I became a teenager that I realized, wait a second, because you start thinking more about what you're doing and getting into your head, which actors tend to do. And that's when I started realizing, well, this is a little different. But I was still having some success, so everything was good. When I came out to Los Angeles, I came out to screen test for a movie of the week that Chris Penn actually booked. It was myself, Chris Penn, and John Stamos, and Chris Penn booked it. I was happy for him. And I decided I was going to stay in LA. After a few interesting situations on sets, I'll leave it at that, I decided I was going to go back to school and get my degree. Went to UCLA, and when I finished up there, I thought, well, I can get back into the acting. It's very different coming at it as a kid to an adult. All the my agents that I had were like, well, you'd have to move to the adult department. The adult agents didn't know me. The industry itself, it's like, well, what have you been doing the last 4 years? I've been going to school. Do you have any tape? Do I have any tape of me going to school? No, I don't. It was just a very different situation. So I thought, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to do this or not. Let me see what else there is. And I saw an ad in the UCLA newspaper, The Bruin, that was looking for a talent agency looking for an intern. 8 hours a week. I thought, well, I'm kind of curious to see how the other half, what they do. I had no desire to be an agent. I went and I got that internship. After a few weeks, I was hired as an assistant. The agent that I was working for at this talent agency really was not really interested in being an agent, more just running the business. So she started putting more and more on my desk. I think growing up in the industry, I had a little bit of an insider view, and I started going out to showcases, and I would sit at showcases with agents that were twice my age and had been doing this for a long time, and I was listening to them what they would tell the actors. And I wouldn't always agree with what they said, but what do I know? I'm just a dumb kid. I don't know what, so I just kind of sat there and listened and nodded. And then the actors started asking me questions. And I would look and I'd give my answer, and I noticed that they were paying a little bit more attention to what I had to say, and I liked that. So I just was giving my honest opinion about things. And people were paying attention, and I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. I like that. So I went back to where I worked, and I said to the agent that I worked for, I said, hey, if you have any more of these showcases, I'll go. And I started doing that more and more, and I still didn't have a desire to be an agent. I thought, well, this is kind of fun for now. I was also touring with my rock band and doing stuff like that. So I thought, this is kind of an angle I want to take, but this is kind of fun in the meantime. After a few years, I decided I needed to kind of settle down, and I was hitting the end of my 20s and realized the long hair and the earrings and being on the road and the lifestyle that led to without the success that I would hope for wasn't what I had wanted. And I started interviewing again for jobs in the industry, and I seemed to be getting offers from talent agencies. So I thought, well, I'll do this, make some connections, maybe get back into my music. And many years later, here I am still doing this. So you find your niche, you find your path, and you follow it, and you see what you're good at, and that's where life takes you.
When you were starting out, did you have any interest in theatrical work as an agent?
When I first started at that agency that I interned at and then became an assistant at, I was doing commercials. And I seemed to have a little bit of a niche for that. I then decided, well, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to maybe work at a talent agency at all, I think theatrical seems more exciting, So I went to work at a pretty big, reputable agency that was a spin-off. One of the vice presidents of William Morris went off and started up his own agency, took a lot of those clients with. and I worked there for a while, and I hated it. I hated it. It was, first of all, it was, you as an assistant working there with all these celebrities who I grew up watching and admiring and thinking were great, and they were very neurotic. It became a situation where it took away that ideal that was in your head of who these people are. And then working with these other agents who were all very chain smoking, foul mouth, anxiety-ridden people, it makes you a little jumpy. And then, you get home from work at 9:30 at night, and with a pile of scripts to break down. So I'm there till 2 in the morning, and then I have to be at the office again at 9 a.m. and deal with this. It rose a lot of anxiety inside of me. It wasn't a good path to be on, and I thought, well, this isn't where I want to be. When I got back in, and I went back into a few years later into the commercial angle, there's two sides to it, and I think that here's what I tell people. I have friends that are working, the theatrical side, and they look at me and, I don't know how you do what you do. It's always, fast paced, and it's nonstop, and you don't get a break, and it's this and that. It's all a numbers thing, and how do you do what you do? And I always look at them and I go, I don't know how you do what you do, because quite honestly, bottom line is, unless you're with one of the big top agencies, which is another area into itself and not the easiest to do. For the agents that work there, the requirements and what you have to kind of keep up with, the numbers and everything else, the stress of that. You're working for a mid-size, a boutique, even if it's a very reputable one. Bottom line is, you develop these actors. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into them, and they finally, maybe after your hard work, they finally get their break. They get on a series. They book their big film. And what happens? The big agencies come in and swoop down and take them. So there is very little loyalty, and I understand it. I understand it from the actor side, but at the same respect, how do you do that? How do you kind of go on as an agent? Then you got to just start up with somebody new again. Plus, there's so much inconsistencies in the theatrical front. Also, I noticed dealing with celebrities and I've dealt with celebrities over the years. I also, dealt with sports celebrities for many years and their cameo roles on TV and film. Casting directors, if they need something from you, they're very responsive and they're great. If they don't, then you're borrowing and pleading to get your actors those times. And I noticed watching the agents that I was working with and what they have to go through to get the actual casting director on the phone, and not the assistant or the associate, get the actual casting director on the line just to take their pitch and try it to get their actors in that door. And the actors are complaining because what do actors do? I'm not going out enough. That's something that I kind of saw, and the game, it was such an interesting game. Commercially, it's different. Commercially, you have your actors, you develop them. Hopefully they do book series, and hopefully they do book film, and then you can go on and do their endorsement deals. If they're smart enough and want to continue to kind of be in the commercial market, which some decide I'm too good for that now, so they step away from that. But mostly there's a much more of a loyalty there. Yes, it is a numbers game, but I don't mind the numbers. If you're playing the numbers, you're hopefully going to win. And we've been fortunate enough to be on the winning side of that, where I think a lot of people aren't. The industry has changed dramatically since I came in. And people ask me all the time, do you love what you do? And yes, of course, I wouldn't be doing it for as long as I have, but would I get into it now based on what it is now as compared to when it was when I first started? And the answer is probably not.
In today's industry, is it still better for a new actor to start working commercially rather than theatrically?
It's definitely better to start with commercial as an actor than it is going for film and TV. But you have to understand, too, a lot of actors move here or decide they want to be an actor, and they instantly jump into that commercial pool. They're not ready for it yet. And bottom line is this. I always compare it to a sport. You're a baseball player. All right, you played some high school ball. That's great. Are you ready then to try out for the big leagues? Are you ready to jump into that, right? You're not going to be able to compete with those people. Now, again, there's a difference between non-union work and union work. So yes, non-union, anybody and their mother can go in and audition for a non-union commercial, and perhaps they have a look, they have a certain, innate ability, perhaps they might have some success. So that is possible. For me, I like to see actors who have earned that right to be there. People that have gone through their training, people that have gone through educating themselves on the business and how it operates. Who are the names out there? Who are the agents? And who are they representing? Who are the casting directors? And how do I, as an actor, separate myself from my competition? That's huge. And so many actors don't understand that. So they jump into the pool, they just submit to every agent, or they just shoot for the big agents and figure, well, hey, why not? Without really knowing what they're doing and how to get there and an understanding of what it takes to compete in the market. Could you go in and maybe book a non-union commercial with no experience? Yes. Are you going to maintain that level? Are you going to be able to continually book in that area? Probably not. Unless you are a completely different type. If you're a 6'8", 350-pound linebacker and, could go in for those specific roles, sure. If you are a drop-dead gorgeous Victoria's Secret-like model, okay, you got a little bit of an edge. Most people are not those. Most actors fall into either nice looking to maybe quirky, real, guy or girl next door, 20s to 30s, and there's just so many. So how do you move from here to there? That's a big question. And then to go from commercial into theatrical, when are you ready to pursue film and TV? Well, again, it depends on what you're looking to do. Are you looking to do, some little low budget, and you could start with that, little low budget indie films or projects or student projects or things like that. But where's your commitment? Where's your passion? What have you really shown and done? And that's something I think that people really do want to see.
Is training as important for a commercial actor as it may be for a theatrical one?
I think training is an amazing thing because bottom line is this. You can be pursuing this for years and never have success and never be good. Let's be honest. Not everybody is good at what they do because they don't have that innate ability. It's like a musician. You can't teach rhythm. Can you teach them how to play the instrument? Yes, you can. But if they don't have that innate ability and that rhythm inside of them to really kind of take it from here to there, are they going to be successful? Probably not. Arguably, are there some actors out there who are successful that really you can see don't have an innate ability? Sure, but that's really rare. And I think for commercials is a very specific style of acting. It really is. I've had theatrical actors that book every film and TV show. I mean, their resume is a mile long and cannot book a commercial. Why? Because they approach it from a theatrical side. Commercials, when you come in and read commercial copy, I'm one of the fewer agents, commercial agents in town that still reads every actor that comes in to meet with me. And sometimes I get a little flack back for that. Managers or even actors who say, you don't have to read. I mean, they shouldn't have to read. They look at their resume. That speaks for itself. Well, unless they are a celebrity, unless they are a household name where people know who they are, I need to see what they can do. And isn't it your job as an actor to audition? It's amazing to me when an actor gets offended because I'm asking them to do what it is that they do. But I want to see, I've had, as I said, people who have a great resume, cannot read commercial copy. It's so getting in some training to at least understand what commercial copy entails, how to break that down, and how to separate yourself. Sometimes commercial copy is no copy at all. Sometimes it's just a look, or a reaction. And you have to go in and audition for those still, and you have to know how to do that. Sometimes you're partnered up with other actors. How do you respond to them? Especially when I get actors that come in and tell me that, oh man, that audition, I was partnered with the worst actor. They were horrible and they ruined that audition for me. No, you're in there to audition for you. And they want to see how you're responding to those other actors who may not be good and maybe throwing you off. How do you improvise in the room? These are big things. And I think a lot of actors just don't get that. So to really get in with that training and to understand what it means from the slate, and that's important, to the last look that you give the camera, that's important, and how you sell that product and how you handle that copy and how you make it your own, these are big things. And I will say this, I would say probably a good 80 to 90% of the actors who come in and read from me are not great with commercial copy. So training, I think, is extremely important to at least get that, not to take away your innate ability, to just kind of go in and enhance that a little bit and to get you comfortable, because unless you're sitting in your bedroom reading, commercial copy in front of a camera every night, which I doubt you're doing, and have an audience that can there to critique you, would be very odd, then you need to have that sort of training and that kind of being able to see yourself do what you do.
What are some things that an actor can do to stand out in such a dense commercial market?
First of all, understand who you are as an actor. Know where your strengths are. Is it humor? Fantastic. Use that humor. Is it a look that you give or something that you have or anything that's a quirk in your personality that can separate you from your competition? Fantastic. Because you got to realize, yes, you're going up against actors that all kind of maybe fit into your category. They may not look exactly like you, but listen, when you're looking at a room full, they're going to start to blend in. Casting directors then have to sift through and look at how many auditions saying the same word, giving the same look, doing the same thing, and then how do you separate that to then I'm going to show my director these people that have the same look and the same. You need to come in there I always say right from your slate. Give a slate that just kind of shows a little of your personality. If you sit there and go, hi, my name is Joe Smith, I'm with such and such agency, I'm already bored. For me, I want to see somebody who walks in and just gives that little something that just kind of separates them without being obnoxious, without looking rehearsed, without looking forced, just something that kind of shows who you are. Now you go through and you start your audition, and listen, you can ask the casting. Some casting don't mind. They want you to stick directly with that copy. When people come in and read from me, I like when they make it their own. Sticking with the copy, but making it your own. A little button at the end that's something that kind of shows who you are and separates you, and a choice. Even if it's not a choice that I necessarily, maybe the director wouldn't choose to use that in the commercial, maybe the casting director might give you a little bit different, but if you make a choice and be convicted to that choice and keep it real, it's not improv class. It's not like you're going to go in there as a 20-year-old guy and go, I'm going to act like a little old lady because I'm going to have fun with this. No, you got to be true to who you are, but just kind of pick something that really gives you a lane and gives you that little edge, makes you stand out, because at the very least, hopefully, if he or she is not quite right for that role, for this commercial, but man, they were good. There was something I remember about them, and next time they see your photo coming across their computer screen, I'm going to give them another chance. I really like what they do. And that's what you want. You want people to stand out, and even better, when I get calls from casting, from directors, from producers who say to me, your actor really wasn't what we were going for on this, but they were so good that we rewrote the commercial for them, or we found something for them in the commercial because, man, we couldn't do without them. That, to me, isn't that the ultimate compliment? It's fantastic. So that's what I try to tell actors, and that's what I want to see from, separate yourself.
How should an actor communicate problems to his or her agent from set? For instance, if a director wants to film extra footage or spots for the internet?
When you're on a set as an actor and you're asked to do something that you're not you're not contracted to actually do, it's important to let your agent know. The thing is, a director's going with a creative mindset. The producer's there and thinking, well, what can we get out of this? What can we do? We know that we set this up as it's a national network commercial, but now we're thinking maybe we can do a little something different. We can do a little behind the scenes. We can put something on the internet. We can do something. We can change some of the lines around, maybe get a different angle on this. But what they're not thinking is, as an actor, what is it that you are entitled to for doing that? In the union, there are certain criteria and certain requirements that, if you change the script, if they're not just, I'm not talking about altering a couple words, but change the actual script, that counts as another spot and you get paid for that. If they want to run that now on the internet, you get paid for that, obviously, but if they're doing something separate behind, we just need to know. Actors are always afraid to rock the boat, and I get that. You're on set, you're like, I'm just going to do what I'm told, and you should, and I get that. But it's not a bad thing to say, listen, I need to use the restroom, or I just need to make sure that my agent is okay with this. Make it into a joke. Oh, my agent's a hard ass. He or she's going to be upset with me if I don't, let them know what's going on. I just need to kind of make sure that everybody's on the same page, so I hope you don't mind. And that's easy to do. If you're there in front of the camera and you're doing it already, again, just make sure you call us afterwards. The worst thing is when we get the call after the shoot is all said and done. I get calls all the time. They have me do a stunt. Well, now I got to try to negotiate extra pay for a stunt that we had no idea that you were supposed to do. And how do we do that afterwards? You signed your contract. It's already done, unless the ad agency is very cool, which sometimes they are, but they don't have to do anything about that. And I've had situations where I had an actress who once called me the next day after a commercial shoot. And it was a car commercial. And the car commercial, which we had no idea, but it was one of those things where it was, young, nice-looking guys and girls who were, like two guys, two girls, who had to, strip down to their underwear in the commercial. What happens, and what they didn't tell us, is that they were shooting this in the middle of February up in the mountains. It was freezing. They didn't provide these actors with a heated area, which is against the union rules. All the ad agency execs had a nice heated area, but they didn't. They took their phones away from them, so they had no way of contacting or calling anybody. And they're out there, take after take, for hours, freezing, until my client passed out. And then they had to, all of a sudden, then the ad agency got a little worried, brought these actors into their heated area, and gave them blankets, gave them some hot, something hot to drink, but she had already passed out. And when I got the call the next day, I had no idea this was going on. And she called me the next day to tell me, and they had to basically take her to the hospital after the shoot. And she said, yeah, well, first of all, I didn't have my cell phone, and I asked if I could borrow a phone, but there was no cell reception. We were up in the mountains. I go, somebody had a way to get through to some, you're in this day and age, that's not, they have a way to get through. I said, so you tell them to either drive down the mountain and call us and let me know what happened. But this is not acceptable. And then I tried to get, reimbursement for what happened to her. And well, listen, it wasn't like she was doing blah, blah, blah. And you get this whole, because it was after the fact. If you're in the middle of a shoot and I can talk to somebody and say, hey, you need to not only get them, A, we can send a SAG rep. B, I need to get them, you need to put them in, every 10 minutes or so, you need to get them heated up with some, blankets and drink and hot drink. And C, because of this, it goes above and beyond what they're supposed to be doing. I want X amount of money to compensate for that. So whether it's somebody who they insist on cutting their hair, shaving their beard, coloring their hair, all of these things that alter your look, and now you're stuck, you're there, you've already done it. I've had celebrities on set that they have, doing things that they make feel uncomfortable and are afraid to call. You need to make sure that, listen, this is your career and this is for you, and you don't want to rock that boat, but you also have agents, managers, and the union in your corner. Non-union gets a little bit tougher, nothing regulating that, so it's just me, and I have to go, hey, not acceptable, I'm pulling my client from the set unless you make this change or do this. That's the only way that we can back it up in that respect.
Can you talk a bit about keeping up communication with your commercial clients?
My job as the agent is to get you in the door, get you those auditions, and then if there's any negotiating to be done or handling of contracts afterwards. I'm not there to be your best friend. I'm not there to be your psychologist or psychiatrist, which I generally am, or any other, but I think the bottom line is that actors need to make sure that they're comfortable communicating with their agent. I always tell my actors, I communicate great through email, because I'm on my email all the time, and I'll always respond via email. If there's a crisis on a set, if there's something extremely important that you need to discuss, I'm always reachable by phone. So even if you're busy, I can call you back. It just depends on how you're communicating. Now, if you start taking advantage of that, and you start calling or emailing just to, whine, bitch, or complain, if it's, the last thing an agent wants to hear, and I will say this, it's like nails on a chalkboard, is it slow out there? How come I'm not going out for this? My friend went in for this commercial. How come I'm not going in for this? And I really feel, did you see this breakdown? Because I'm perfect for it. I'm perfect as guy number 2, ages 25 to 45, all shapes and sizes, all ethnicities. Did you see that one? Yes. Now, what I interpret that as, can I tell you how to do your job? Can you get me in for this? Yeah, I'm trying to get you in for this. Now, there's a lot of agents out there who don't communicate with their actors. And I see actors all the time that come in and talk to me and say, I haven't gone out in a year. You haven't gone out in a year? What? And have you spoken to your agent? I try. They don't return my calls. They don't return my emails. Well, maybe it's time to get a new agent. Maybe that agent doesn't even know you exist. For me, somebody emails me with a question and I'm going to respond to it. If you whine, if you're complaining, that's when we get a little maybe defensive. If you kind of approach it from a professional way, our job, I always tell every actor this. if you're not getting out there, you're not booking. If you're not booking, you're not making money. And if you're not making money, I'm not making money. I'm not doing this for free. Very few careers out there, very few jobs do work for free for somebody, you know. And if you hire a publicist, you're paying them to do your job. You hire an attorney, you're paying them by the hour to do a job. Heck, you go to your accountant, your doctor, or, you know, whoever it is, you're paying them to do a job. An agent takes a percentage only if you book. So we want to get you out there as much as possible. I personally don't play what I call the spaghetti theory of you throw it against a wall and see what sticks. If I take you in as a client and if I agree to work with you, then I feel that you're a viable commodity and somebody that if I can get in that door is going to book for me. And so I want to get you out there. I want to keep you fresh. I want to keep you going as much as I can. I want to make sure that we have the right materials. I'm very hands-on with my photos, a lot more than I think most of my peers are. I go through, before you do a photo shoot, I talk to you about exactly what I want in that photo shoot. I'm always scouring for good and better photographers and making sure that they're consistent. And I'm very critical on my photographers, that anybody that I'm going to put on a list or recommend, they have to be consistent and good, and if they're not, they're off that list. I go through and I look at all my clients' proofs, and then I look through, I narrow that down. Then I go through a whole elimination process, and I sit down and I really go through everything with my clients. So I make sure that I have, because if I'm putting out the wrong materials, A, you're not going to get in the door. B, it makes me look bad. I don't want people looking at my submissions and going, well, what are they using over there? I think it's a reflection on you. Like how you dress, it's a reflection on you. Your photos that go out, everything that you do. I always tell my staff, every phone call that you get on, every time you don't return a phone call or respond to an email, it's a reflection on what we're building. And so you want to make sure that reflection is a positive one. At least that's how I view it. I know maybe other people don't, but that's how I see it. So I always like to make sure that I tell people, very open to emails, and if there's something that you really need to discuss, I'm there. I also do client lunch once a week. And I will go out with, I used to, because we get so set. I mean, I'm stuck at my desk all week and I am working straight through lunch. My computer keyboard will show the crumbs as evidence of that. But I will make sure that, once a week, I go out with a client who wants to have that one-on-one time with me personally, so we can kind of, sit down and discuss whatever they want to discuss. I just ask that you don't make it a bitch fest. And, hopefully it's productive. And if you have questions, we can answer that. If you want to talk about photos, if you want to talk about your future here as a client, anything. If you just want to talk about life itself, I love that. I want to get to know you a little bit better, and you can get to know me a little bit better. And that also helps, because when I'm out there pitching or submitting, the more I know about you personally, things will come to my mind. Oh, that person loves to travel. I remember them telling me about this great trip to Europe that they had where they, did backpacking and they blah, 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 whatever it is. And then I can bring that into whatever I'm using to submit you. Life experiences. It's great. So family experience, whatever it is. I love that.
How has the internet affected your work as a commercial agent?
The internet has made our jobs, I think, significantly more difficult in a lot of ways. In some ways a little easier. The communication aspect of it is obviously easier. The sending out an audition, everything is right there. It's not human error where you're giving wrong information or casting can give you wrong and you're relaying that to your client. It's right there in writing. And and they can confirm that at any, so it's boom, boom, click a button and it's confirmed. Easy. Okay? Working, I will say the way that it's made it far more difficult. There's no boundaries. There used to be, back in the day, when all your breakdowns came from breakdown services, there was a machine that you had sitting in your little copy room, and you hear that machine going off. They were open from 9:30 to 6:30, Monday through Friday, non-holidays. Closed early on holiday weekends. You knew when you were working, you knew when you weren't. Those breakdowns would come through, you'd read them. I could put the names, we were dealing with also hard copy pictures. So I could write down the names, I hand them to an assistant, the assistant goes into the photo room and they pull the pictures and put together the packages. I can write whatever notes I wanted on the picture and we send that off to casting. Casting directors would call their favorite agents and their A-list agents and say, hey, we have these time slots available from this time to this time, or just tell me who your best is. And you could discuss it with them, because so many times those specs change from the time that they put out a breakdown to the time that they actually want to bring in. And you call it, when you go to pitch now with the internet and they go, well, the specs have changed. We're no longer looking for this type. Or now we're looking for that type, and they've really changed. Or we really need, something in this parameter. They also do where I can go online and see the people, and if I don't like their photo, there's not a lot of trust in that respect anymore. Also, it widens the gamut for agents that are kind of, that didn't develop their reputations, that don't have that rapport with casting. A lot of these younger casting directors are saying, well, I just look at every picture that comes in instead of really looking at who the agent is. To me, I think you're doing yourself a disservice by that, because you know that certain agencies are going to have the better quality actors. They're going to have the bigger bookers. Now you're wasting time by bringing in these people that half of them might not be what they seem to be in their photo. But the agent knows that, and if you have that trust in that agent, you should trust that agent to bring in the right people. So the internet has changed that dramatically, plus the boundaries in terms of you can send out a breakdown at midnight and say, I need it right away. You can send it in on the holidays. I've worked on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. They'll put out audition times at 11 o'clock at night and say, get your clients confirmed. There'll be breakdowns, 40 character breakdowns that will come out on the internet 7 o'clock at night saying, I need this by 9 a.m. Well, that means you're either working on that breakdown, because those breakdowns, if you have a significant amount of clients, are going to take a couple hours, and if to do it correctly, and that's the other thing, you want to do it right, instead of just, submit all. You want to make sure you're going through everything, making sure you're checking on the bookouts, making sure you're checking on conflicts, making sure that you're putting notes, you're changing out and putting in the right photos. Those are all really important things to do when you're dealing with it online, right? You can't just pull a photo from a shelf and stick it into an envelope. So when you're doing that, and then you have to follow, there's just, to me, it's taken away what an agent does and that agent-casting relationship. That, to me, I think is really a hard thing to swallow, and why a lot of the casting also commercially has gone to a younger breed, because the old school way of doing things is it is old school, but the old school way worked. And I don't know, maybe the new school way is working too, but you're missing out on seeing a lot of really good, talented actors, because I'm just going to look at 10,000 submissions and see what photo looks the best. That, to me, I don't know, it seems a little, counterproductive, but everybody has to do their job the way that they see fit.
With internet and email, how do you keep a distance between your work and your personal life?
My wife threatens that she's going to throw my cell phone into the ocean at times. You have to. It's hard, because you could be working during the busy seasons, in particular. You could be working 24/7, and I have. Do the people know that you're doing that? Do your actors necessarily appreciate it? I think some do. But it really is difficult, because you don't want to miss out on an opportunity for your clients. You want to make sure that everybody's getting confirmed. And I'm really anal about stuff like that. So it's one of those things when you're looking at stuff, and I have to get on the computer every night, and it's not good because it disrupts your sleep patterns, and I have insomnia, so that's not good. Weekends, you want to be out enjoying with your family, and sometimes you're checking your emails and making sure that you got everything, and I'll get calls Saturday nights at 6. I received a call, good friend of mine, casting director, but called me at 6 o'clock. It was a few years ago, my wife's birthday, on a Saturday night. We're out to dinner for her birthday, and I get a call saying, hey, I need you to send me 5 or 6 people down to I'm doing a casting right now. And now I'm sitting there going, okay, now I got to step out of the restaurant, try to figure out who I'm sending. What are you looking for? Okay, great. Let me try to call them. Let me try to email them. See if I can't get you people down there within the hour to Santa Monica, whatever it was. That is extremely difficult. And it's very difficult to take a step back from that as a commercial agent. So when theatrical agents say to me, I don't know how you do what you do, that's the one area where I say, you're right. Because even when we're sitting around here, they have their seasons. We don't always have our seasons. We're usually busy with something. So even when it's a little slower commercially, there are tons of things that we need to be doing, and there's never really that chance to kind of step back. So you hope that you surround yourself with a good staff that can take a little of that off of you, and you can share in some of that. And I'm fortunate to have that now, which took me years to get. But I think when you're looking at how to separate and how to take that step back, it's either, I sacrifice this job, I sacrifice my client's career for my own sake, my own peace of mind, or I have to trudge through it, and this is what I need to do. And I tend to go with the trudge through it. So I wish there was an easier answer. Even when I do take, and I started taking vacations recently, I hadn't for a while. But when you do, you're still like to let go, to sit there and not look at your phone and not look at the computer and look at everything, to really just trust that everything my staff will say to me, we haven't burnt down yet. And it's true because, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? You just got to kind of loosen the reins. As a control freak, that's tough to do. But I've learned as I get older to try to do that a little bit more.
How does a large social media following affect your bookings as a commercial actor?
I have been told that social media following is becoming bigger, and I see that it has in certain degree. I mean, when it comes to celebrity, that becomes a situation where they want the celebrity to tweet out stuff when they do a commercial, when they or put it out on their Instagram or whatever it is. I've also seen where people that have large followings, hundreds of thousands of followers on one of those, the ad agencies or people will reach out and do instant advertising just with them. I'm going to pay you X amount of money just to put out this tweet about our product or put out an Instagram thing. In terms of the basic commercials, while some commercials are going a little bit more with the social media, I'm not seeing it quite as much in terms of affecting that actor. If you don't have social media following, are they not going to book you for a commercial? I don't see that. I still see them, but is it heading in that direction? It might be, but why not? The advertisers have built-in audiences, so I get it. You have 500,000 followers. That's 500,000 people who are seeing their company's name or their product. Boom, it's right there. As opposed to on TV, where in this age of DVRs, you tape your shows and you can forward right through the commercials. And that's a harsh thing. And that's why things are going more towards the internet as well, because internet, when you're watching a show on the internet, it forces you to watch commercials. You can't forward through them. Interesting advertising, but the internet doesn't pay very well. Hopefully, and I say hopefully because who knows, but hopefully in the next upcoming negotiations in 2016, they will be able to discuss some sort of rates that are more I think fair for the actor for those internet spots and for those new media spots and even for social media. I don't know if that's going to happen. We can only sit back and keep our fingers crossed and hope.
Do you think that commercial departments will soon need a specialized new media department for dealings on YouTube, Vine, and other platforms?
Some of the agencies have already done that. I know some of the larger agencies, I believe CAA has a social media department and a couple others have. I know one agency in particular who actually closed down their on-camera commercial department and now do what they call branding and are focused primarily on social media marketing, figuring take myself out of the rat race of having to compete with all these other big commercial agencies, get ahead of the game and really focus on social media. Because there are other agencies out there that have been in contact with us that's what they do. It's all social media. I think that it's not like we're ahead of the curve now because we're already kind of in that curve, almost behind that curve to do that. But you could continue down that road. I think that there is a market for it. I personally, because I'm not of that teenage to early 20s mindset of and crowd, a way of thinking in terms of all the social media stuff. Me personally, nothing wrong with that. I just don't have time for it personally, but I wouldn't know what to do with that. But I think, having somebody, would I love to have a young agent in here who does and can really have a focus and an idea of where to take that? Absolutely. I think it's a great way to kind of keep moving with what's going on, because as the commercial market constantly changing and not necessarily for the better, you want to make sure that you maintain or you're going to wind up failing. And there's really very little room for failure, so you got to find those other areas. And I think that's a huge area.
How do actors get on your radar, and what do you look for when adding a new client?
There's a few ways. I mean, when I was building the department, I would go out all the time. I would be at showcases, plays, comedy, venues. I mean, I would scout everywhere to build. Fortunately, we're in a position where I don't have to do that. But I still have my younger staff. I think that they need to get their feet wet in that area and, go out, get their names out there and keep our name out there. So they'll go out and do showcases and things that we feel that might be able to fill some holes. We have a very full department. We have types in every category. Where do we then fill those holes? How do we find talent? Because there's a lot of great talent out there, and we might already have 5 or 6 of that type. So we are constantly looking and seeing, okay, what's working with what we have? Where do we need to fill in that gap? Are there specific types that are harder to come by? Yes, there are, and we're constantly looking in that area. I look through all the submissions that come to me. Now they're emailed. I will look through those. But how do you separate yourself from? I receive literally hundreds a week, hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. So when I go through those, how does it separate from each other? A good manager. If I have a relationship with a manager, I'm going to take a look at what they have, and I'm going to be honest with them and tell them, hey, I have this category, but this is what I'm looking for, so they know what to send me, and hopefully can handle the honest feedback when I give it to them. I look, whether it's casting directors, even clients who might say, hey, I got this great person who I just did a film with, or I shot this with, or they're in my class and I think they're amazing. They're hilarious, or they're this, or they're that. And what kind of skills do you have that might separate yourself? Are you, a tremendous parkour athlete who happens to be an expert skateboarder and surfer and have all these great skills? Do you speak 3 languages? What is it that separates you from the rest of your competition? And then I have to kind of base things on, okay, here's what I'm seeing coming across photo-wise. Big peeve, big peeve. Any actor out there listening to this right now, when you submit, please include your resume. It is amazing to me how many submissions I get. Generally, 9 times out of 10, when I receive a submission without a resume, I don't care what it is, I throw it away right away. I trash it. Every so often, I see somebody that comes through, I was referred by so-and-so. Okay, I know so-and-so. I booked 3 commercials in the last year. Okay, fantastic. They have a look that we might need, and I think that they're interesting, but no resume. I'm like, where's your resume? I want to trash it, but I'm like, send me your resume. If you have a reel, and it's a good reel, I'm not talking about one you put together in your basement or an acting class. I'm talking for me personally. I want to see a good reel. Commercials are great, especially if you have dialogue in those commercials and it's not just a glance, a look. That's really good. Or a comedy. I'm always about comedy. So if you have really good sitcoms or something like that on your, these are things that I want to see as well. But resume is so important. I want to see your training. I want to see what you've done. Have you been on camera? I want to see your skills. I mean, these are all things that are in your resume. To show me a picture, and one picture at that. And sometimes people will send me, I don't even get a picture. I get, hey, I heard good things about you, and I wanted to see if you're taking on new clients, so I'd love to come in for a meeting. Maybe we can grab a cup of coffee. Maybe we can grab it. That just shows me your ignorance. So I want to make, send me something that looks real. Tell me why I need to meet with you, who referred you, if you were referred, or where you heard of us. Show me that you know who we are. That's important too. Do your research first. Know who you're submitting to. Tell me if you've booked any commercials, what makes you viable and marketable, and I'll take a look at that. Yes, people are all going to say, I feel like I'm viable and marketable because of this, that, and the other thing. Yes, okay, well, I'm funny and I'm good looking and I'm that. Yeah, okay, so is every other actor. I can read through that, but I really want to see what kind of separates you and then narrow it down from there and decide. And then when you come in to meet with me, you meet with me and my team, I'm looking for a few things. I'm looking, number one, when you walk through the door, do you look like your pictures and are you marketable? Are you a type that we now need? Sometimes I'll want to meet with people because of a manager referral, because a client referred you or casting director. But then you walk in and I realize I knew, just not going to, unless you then handle your commercial copy and you blow us out of the water. You're different and you're unique. Your personality stands out. Is this somebody that, man, I want to get to know this person better. They are just the coolest person. And so now you kind of risen above the rest of the crowd, and maybe you've separated yourself. You have a look that we already have, but you're somebody I feel could even be better. And that's not easy to do because we have some great clients, but if you can do that, and people have, that's what I'm looking for as well. Don't come in cocky. Confidence is fine. I like confidence. Cocky, not good. I'm not your friend. When people walk in and meet with me and start dropping the F-bomb on me, I'm no prude. I grew up back east. I grew up with a mother who, her language isn't always the best, and I grew up with that. But when you're coming in, I'm not going out drinking right now with you. You're coming in a meeting with me for a meeting. You could be professional. Show me who you are. Don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me, be honest with me. But I want to see who you are. I want to see your personality and what you're going to walk into a room with. How are you going to separate yourself? That's something that I'm looking for. So those are things that I really look for when I meet with people. I appreciate you watching. I hope you really learned a lot today. And have a great time out there.